Welcome to our presentation on growth mindset and mindfulness in the classroom. My name is Milton and I'll be presenting on the growth mindset trait. I've been with Ashford for over 7 years, and in that time I've served in the role of enrollment advisor, student advisor, and currently as a curriculum specialist. Lauren?
Hi, my name's Lauren Rios, and I'll be co-presenting with Milton and I'll be specifically touching on the mindfulness approach in the classroom. I've been with the organization for over 9 years. In that time, I've served in student services for about 7 years, and most recently I've been spending my time as the academic program manager for the College of Ed, as well as serving as an associate faculty member.
What are we here for? We're here to learn how we can do more to transform the classroom. Who are we here for? We're here for our students and their potential for success. But why? Because they are our top priority, and without them, we wouldn't exist as an institution. How do we do it? My partner and I believe that we can significantly impact the transformation of the classroom through mindfulness and a growth mindset. Our students are active and committed to their goals of higher education and advancing their lives, personally and professionally. Ashford University is also dedicated to their success as we partner with each student via the online classroom. It is when the student and the instructor meet in the classroom for the first time that the first opportunity for positive impact occurs. It is this initial contact that is met with mindfulness and a growth mindset. The tone is set for an improved student experience and a greater likelihood of student success. It is the goal of this presentation to support the practice of a growth mindset culture in the classroom through stronger relationships between students and their instructors. We also want to encourage mindfulness in the classroom to help us better meet individual student needs. In the next slide, Carol DeWitt, professor of psychology at Stanford University and authority on mindset, shares what she has discovered about the mindset trait in students.
In our work, we've shown that some students hold a fixed mindset about their intelligence. They think it's just a fixed trait, you have a certain amount, and that's that. This is the mindset that turns students away from learning because they're so worried about how much they have that learning takes a back seat. Other students have a growth mindset. They believe their intellectual abilities can be developed. They don't think everyone's the same or anyone can be Einstein, but they think that intelligence can be increased through effort, persistence, instruction, mentoring.
Now let's see if we can name that mindset. Let's meet Jessica and Bernard. They're both starting their first math class and are sharing their feelings and thoughts about the class. Jessica's not good at math and she knows she'll struggle, but Bernard says he's not a pro, but he's willing to do hard work. Who has a fixed mindset? Who has a growth mindset? That's right, Jessica has a fixed mindset and Bernard has a growth mindset. It's their mindset that will carry them through the course and determine their success. It's now the start of week 2 of the math course, and Jessica is not doing so well as she predicted, and she blames the instructor and the book. Students with a fixed mindset who are not successful don't typically take responsibility for their performance. And having a fixed mindset leads to frustration with the likelihood of failure and the student giving up. On the other hand, a growth mindset leads to confidence, success, and with a growth mindset, even when the student doesn't do well, they still stick with it. Right now it's Jessica versus math, and math is winning. With a fixed mindset, Jessica's likely next step will not be to study more or put forth more effort. According to research done at Stanford University, students with a fixed mindset will look for shortcuts instead. They'll try to find someone else who is doing worse in order to make themselves feel better, or they'll run from difficulty. And that's what we see when our students drop. Here's what a fixed mindset and a growth mindset look like in a situation like this, as the brain processes errors. In the fixed mindset on the left, you see nothing is happening. Nothing is happening because the fixed mindset brain has given up on the work of learning and trying again. The student has left the scene where the learning casualty occurred. However, the growth mindset brain is running red hot, processing errors, learning from them, and correcting them. With a growth mindset, things can be different for Jessica if she is encouraged to get out of her comfort zone and if she decides to push herself to do something that's difficult. Dweck's research shows that when this happens, neurons in the brain form new and stronger connections. It's over time and with support that Jessica will learn the material and she'll be successful. So what can the student expect from their instructor? What will we do next? Well, let's take the lead and initiate contact with the student with a hidden agenda and a plan to transform the student's educational experience in our class and beyond our class by introducing growth mindset principles and practices. These are just a few approaches that could make the difference in how things turn out for Jessica in her math class, in her degree, and in her life. I think it's important to pause briefly to define our student population and the challenges and opportunities that it brings. As you review this list, consider that it's possible that Jessica fits into 7 of the 9 categories listed. She may be a 40-ish-year-old African-American single mom serving in the military who was the first person in her family to go to college. There are risks associated with adult learners like Jessica. Understanding this informs how we design our approach to Jessica and how we respond to her performance and participation in the classroom. With the right support, at-risk students can grow at 3 times the rate of their counterparts. Dr. Newton Miller. One tool that is useful to provide the support Dr. Miller mentions is differentiated instruction. We must quickly learn our students and adjust our approach to a method that supports how they learn best without lowering the standard. In the next slide, Carol DeWitt shares research that supports this point when a growth mindset is applied.
These mindsets play a critical role in students' learning and in how they fare across difficult school transitions. In one study, my graduate students and I tracked hundreds and hundreds of low-income minority students across the transition to 7th grade, a very difficult transition and one in which many students turn off to school. We found that those with the growth mindset quickly pulled apart from those who had a fixed mindset, and their grades, especially in math, diverged over the next 2 years. We then studied high-income students, pre-med students, at an Ivy League university on the East Coast. And here, too, we found that those with the growth mindset outperformed those with a fixed mindset in their organic chemistry course, the very challenging gateway to the pre-med curriculum.
Let's go over a few approaches that can positively impact Jessica and make the difference in how things turn out in her math class. As the instructor and authority in the classroom, let's take the lead with the growth mindset from the start. Let's not wait for red flags or issues to arise that force us to react or respond. Let's engage students in a way that allows them to see the importance we place on having a growth mindset. Let's take a fresh approach by using pictures and quotes and multimedia to grab their attention and inject growth mindset ideas and concepts. Confucius said it doesn't matter how slowly you go, so long as you don't stop. It's important that our students know that you have only failed if you have given up. Until then, it's learning. And Albert Einstein admitted, he said, "It's not that I'm so smart, it's that I stay with problems for longer." We want to build a strong and trusting relationship with our students, and relationships take work, effort, and intentionality. So it's okay to have a hidden agenda, and it's important to be deliberate and purposeful in our interaction and communication with our students. This requires being prepared with tools and responses that encourage a growth mindset. Here's a set of questions and feedback from coaching a growth mindset in sports and athletes. They apply to education and students as well. The second one hints at a very significant concept of the growth mindset that we'll talk about later. Let's be intentional about forging stronger relationships with our students. Use humor to connect with them and draw them in. Be vulnerable. This lets the student know that we value them enough to take a risk and show them a different side of their instructor. Research shows that social support is an interpersonal process in which the provider communicates to the recipient that he or she is valued, cared for, and part of a reciprocal relationship. With enhanced awareness and response to students' needs, we can influence a student's belief about themselves and influence their behavior to reflect a growth mindset. When I was a student advisor, I had to encourage my students to believe in themselves, to give their best effort, and be confident in their work. I can remember one student who was in the associate's program for early childhood education. She was soft-spoken and seemed unsure of herself. Each week, we would have a conversation about her weekly assignment and how she just wasn't sure if she'd do well. Yet, week after week, she would earn an A or a B on this assignment. She needed weekly assurance. So what about Jessica? Well, let's see what might happen if she's met with a growth mindset. As the instructor, take the lead and let Jessica know you're in her corner. This is what Professor Guy does. He sees that Jessica isn't doing well in the class. It's only week 1. He lets her know that there's time to pick up her grade and for her to be successful with effort and determination. And he's there to help her. Professor Guy is prepared to help Jessica over the next 4 weeks. He provides her with tools and resources, tutoring provided by the university, praise that reinforces her efforts and her hard work, and he communicates principles of growth mindset through words such as yet and not yet. When a student earns a low grade, a sense of failure comes with that grade, and it can feel like it's final and that's just how things are going to be. The student will think, well, now I'll never pass this class or I'll never get my degree. To them, now means never. However, with a growth mindset, the student understands that although they have not done well in the past, the future can be different, and it's with the future that opportunity comes. The low grade means not yet instead of never, and not yet means there's still time. Through their own effort and persistence, and with their instructor's help, they can learn the material and do well in school. The student will start to believe for themselves that their intelligence and abilities are not fixed. Jessica was the winner in her math class because with the support and influence of her instructor, She won the fight to practice a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. Within the concept of the growth mindset, there are interesting and exciting parallels to mindfulness. Lauren will now share how mindfulness transforms the classroom.
Thank you, Milton, for your discussion on growth mindset. I'm going to go ahead and piggyback off that a little bit, and I'll jump into my topic, which is going to be mindfulness in the classroom. Lao Tzu once said, "I have just 3 things to teach: simplicity, patience, and compassion. These are our greatest treasures." But if I could add a 4th to this list, it would be mindfulness. Mindfulness is linked to so much of who we are as educators, and Milton's discussion had centered around mindset. And I would feel remiss if I did not continue on this theme of transforming our students' minds through thoughtful acts of compassion and understanding. I'm going to briefly touch on the key elements of mindfulness that I have used in my own courses, and hopefully these will benefit your students as well in the future. So just a few brief things that we'll cover today regarding mindfulness. I will give a brief overview of what mindfulness is. I will discuss what mindfulness can look like in the classroom, and I'll also discuss the impacts of mindfulness from a teaching perspective. So what exactly is mindfulness? Mindfulness does have a variety of definitions and theories behind its shared practice. More importantly, it is centered around bringing awareness to the self and to the waking present that we're currently experiencing. So just to get into a few examples of where we can kind of focus our attention and ways to be more mindful is think about sitting on the beach and sitting in the sand. Are you being mindful of your toes in the sand, what you're feeling with each grain of sand, the salty sea air, the wind blowing, the ocean breeze? Those are just a few things of your focus and how to be more mindful in your present environment. Another example would be meal prepping, preparing the meal for a family, a friend, a loved one. What goes into all those acts of preparing that meal and what you're truly focusing on in the midst of preparing that meal rather than your attention being diverted somewhere else. Another classic example would be in this moment in time as you're listening to this presentation. Are you aware of what is going on? Are you free of distraction, free of emails, free of phones during this presentation? So just take stock of how you're feeling in this moment and challenge yourself to remain mindful during the remainder of this presentation and see how that goes. So a few discussions that have been centered around mindfulness is the brain and how that is impacted by mindful acts and behaviors that one may do day in and day out. So recent research presented by the University of Toronto illustrated findings that yielded a positive impact on the brain's density when practicing mindfulness. That is, participants began to show density in 2 interesting areas of the brain. The first being the posterior cingulate cortex, and that is particularly related to emotion, memory, focus, and meditation. And the second area is the left side of the hippocampus, which is related to emotional regulation. Now, we understand that the students that we encounter in the classroom can benefit from certain levels of support so long as we begin to live and practice mindfulness in the classroom. It is important to increase our awareness as educators when in the classroom and recognize certain states that we may notice students becoming frustrated, withdrawn. They may be no longer engaged in the class, and engagement may be minimal. They may have feelings of being overwhelmed and stress and fear of their inability to finish this program. These feelings should not be foreign to us as adults or as educators because we're lifelong students and we understand these impacts and emotions can come in and out through the student's lifetime at Ashford University. All right, this first slide is just an example of the location of the posterior cingulate cortex within the brain. It is centered around the corpus callosum for my neuroanatomy nerds out there, but this is just highlighting the area of the brain of where this is located. This second slide is another image specifically showing the location of the left hippocampus, a little bit more recognizable for those who have some background in the anatomy of the brain. And that side is going to focus specifically with our emotional regulation, just as a reminder for those with the two impacts of the brain regarding mindfulness. As you can see from the two most previous slides, I had mentioned and discussed briefly the posterior cingulate cortex and the left side of the hippocampus. As a reminder, these two areas are felt by our students most when the stress is high and they're unable to focus. And this is unfortunately can cause a student to drop from our classes, feel overwhelmed. And I think it's imperative that we understand our own mind and body in terms of emotional regulation and the ability to focus and overcome our own fixed mindset states in order to help our students develop these same growth mindsets as well. To kind of help shed light on what I mean by focus and emotional regulation, let's begin a quick mindfulness activity. Just take a brief moment to review this photo in the slide and reflect your current mind state and consider how these two mind states can impact your students and your personal life or even your professional life. Are you feeling more to the left side of the picture where you just have so much going on you can't really sift through and find that area to focus on? Or is your mind more with the right side of the photo where you're focusing on the then and now in your environment?
A mindfulness meditation. During this meditation, we will focus on being mindful, finding that point where you are completely aware of the now. Breathe in through the nose to a count of 4 and out to the count of 6. Whatever thoughts come and go in your mind at this point, simply observe them as if from a distance. See them as colored balloons, as separate from you, and let them go. Let them float away. You are present now. You are not controlled by your thoughts. You can acknowledge that they are simply that, thoughts. Be conscious of the beat of blood within you, of the rhythm of your breathing, the brush of clothing against your skin. Feel the surface on which you sit and how your body presses into it. Be aware of any scents that you can smell or colors you can see. Notice the detail in the sounds you are hearing. Feel the temperature of the space you are in. Spend some moments simply being, aware of all that is within you and around you right now, in this very moment. This is what it is to be mindful.
All right, welcome back, guys. Hopefully that 3-minute video brought you to a place of feeling a little less anxious, maybe a little bit more at peace with inside your mind, maybe your body. But take a moment or two and do that self-check with yourself and really, really evaluate where your mind and body is and notice how you're feeling. Do you feel a little bit less anxious? Does your mind feel quieter compared to a moment or two before? Do you feel more relaxed, at ease? My hope is that you're answering yes to these questions, and I'm hoping that you're considering adding this to your practice either with teaching or into your classroom, especially to help your students make that transformation who might be struggling because they have that fixed mindset and they do have personal frustrations. And having these moments where you have a mindfulness check-in where you just kind of tune out for those 3 minutes and really, really look inside can sometimes help ourselves and our students to remove that blockage, maybe a fixed mindset state, and be able to kind of move forward. Hopefully by now, after you've kind of checked in with your mind and body, maybe you might be asking yourself, how can I be more mindful as an instructor? And in all honesty, it doesn't take a lot to be mindful in our classroom. It honestly comes down to asking ourselves a few of the following questions. Am I fully dedicating my attention to my students while I converse with them via discussion boards, while I grade their assignments, respond to emails, and address any questions or concerns that may arise? For me personally, each time that I'm seated in front of my computer and I have my classroom ready to go, I ensure that I've fully dedicated myself to each and every student to whom I connect with at that moment when I am in the classroom. I'm sure that I'm as free as possible from possible distractions in order to ensure that my awareness is focused on my discussions, assignments, and most importantly, my students in general. So just a few examples of mindfulness that you can bring into the classroom. If you can recall the slides that I showed previously with the 2 cloud bubbles, one that is fully packed and the other one with the present environment. These are just some examples that I share in all my classes week over week to help illustrate to the students how they can kind of cultivate mindfulness on their own by being more aware of it within the classroom, whether that's through my announcements or through a weekly email that I may share. Just something fun to do with your students that's not necessarily content related, but stress related and time management related. Sharing in your announcements that you embrace the notion it's all about progress and not perfection with your students. That can speak volumes for students who do struggle with a fixed mindset and how to help them graduate to that growth mindset. Creating an environment and setting, the tone in the beginning can speak volumes with our students, especially when you're coming from a place of compassion and care. It's important to remain aware of how to establish mindfulness with our students, especially when we're showing our support, love, and creating that safe place in the classroom for our students to feel comfortable to open up a little bit more. A classic example that I always like to share with my students is I wasn't the typical college student while I was growing up and earning my degree, so sharing your own personal collegiate struggles with students is a great way to help empathize and offer students another perspective if they have a lot on their plate, and also helps for them to reach out and ask for help and guidance as well. So some of the positives that can be seen with the effects of mindfulness in the classroom, there has been research in the field on brain-based behavior and mindfulness, which has found that mindfulness changes the brain by allowing people to access the present moment pathway. And it's an important when working with sad mood states. Now, sad mood states can be with depression, and working with any student within our classrooms, we may encounter students who are working with not necessarily a sad mood state, but maybe a frustrated one, or one where they are depressed, or maybe it's one with a fixed mindset and they have that inability to not move past that and not allow them to access that present moment pathway that will allow them to grow. Other research and educators in the field have found that mindfulness is a key to their success in that it allows them to find unique ways to appeal to students who may have a different style of learning and understanding than our own. I think it's very, very important that we humble ourselves as educators and take that step back and realize that our own growth to get to where we are in our career and in our level of education is not the same for students, and having that level of empathy and being more mindful of that can definitely help students to see you as a resource rather than somebody who is just telling them what to do rather than how they can do it better. Me personally, I've seen the effects of mindfulness in my classroom. I see that students are more engaged, they're more apt to reach out with questions, and I also notice less frustration and drops in my classes when practicing mindfulness in the classroom. My overall goal when working with students, especially when bringing mindfulness into my classroom, is to not only prepare them for their the next course that they have in their schedule, but more so to prepare them for the road ahead. We all know the road ahead with courses can be tough, it can be draining, it is stressful, but hopefully these small shifts in mindfulness can help bring down those levels of anxiety and allow more of a growth mindset with our students moving forward.
And they did it because learning a growth mindset transformed the meaning of effort and difficulty. It used to mean they were dumb, and now it means they had a chance to get smarter. Difficulty just meant not yet. Last year, I got a letter from a 13-year-old boy. He said, "Dear Professor Dweck, I read your book already." I like the fact that it was based on sound scientific research. That's why I decided to test out your growth mindset principles in 3 areas of my life. As a result, I'm earning higher grades. I have a better relationship with my parents. I have a better relationship with the other kids at school. I realize I've wasted most of my life. Let's not waste any more lives, because the more we know that basic human abilities can be grown, the more it becomes a basic human right for kids, all adults, to live in environments that create that growth, to live in environments filled, overflowing with yet.
So thank you for joining our presentation, and we hope your classrooms are filled with the transforming power of mindfulness and a growth mindset.